the gift, the medication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the Prophet ﷺ on this journey. He gave him as-salah. He gave him prayer. You see, prayer wasn't just a random assignment. Prayer wasn't just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, okay, start praying now. Prayer was a medication. Prayer was a therapy. Prayer was a prescription from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam deal with the struggles and the disappointments and the trials of everyday life. And so only when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam reached his lowest, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, here's the prayer. Here's my gift to you. This prayer, brothers and sisters, throughout generations now, has been transformed from a gift to a burden, to something that they used to want to do. You know, when difficulty would happen to the Prophet ﷺ, you know what he would say? Everyone knows who the mu'adhin was, the famous mu'adhin Bilal. He would say, "Arihna biha ya Bilal." He would say, "Ya Bilal, give us some rest with it." What does that mean? It means call the adhan. Let us take a break from all this craziness in life, all the business and all the work and everything and all the family. Let us take a break. Arihna biha ya Bilal. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ju'ilat qurratu ayni fi as-salah." That the coolness of my eyes was given to me in salah. And I know that coolness of the eyes, we've probably all heard this before. Coolness of the eyes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses it in the Quran. He talks about how children are the coolness of the eyes. Your spouses will be the coolness of your eyes. You know what this means? This is an Arabic idiom. It's an expression. I want you to imagine, do you guys know how hot it is outside right now in Knoxville? They say it's a heat wave, but I mean, for those of us who have been overseas, this is like springtime, right? But imagine traveling in the desert. This is where this phrase came from. Imagine traveling in the desert. It's super hot. You're sweating. And not only are you sweating, but like when you sweat, the sweat dries and the salt from your sweat, the sodium from your sweat starts to crystallize on your face. And so you have a very dry face. Add on to that now the sand, the wind is blowing in your face. And now imagine how your face feels. Imagine how your eyes feel. Now imagine coming upon a beautiful oasis in the middle of the desert. Like a beautiful pool, some trees. And you go over and you take that water and you splash it in your face. And you splash it and then you drink some and you splash it. That's the coolness of your eyes. How would you feel at that point? You'd feel so refreshed. So the Prophet Muhammad said that my refreshment was found in the salah. The reason why I'm bringing this up in Ramadan is because Ramadan is such an amazing time where everybody, mostly everybody, inshallah, everybody who's fasting prays Maghrib and Fajr. And I've been talking to a lot of the young men and young women, and they've been saying that this is the first time that they've prayed 5 daily prayers in a long time. That they've made it to finish all the 5 prayers. And that it's become something that's easy for them. What that's telling us as a community is that prayer is not the coolness of our eyes. Prayer is not something that gives us rest, as the Prophet ﷺ said. Prayer is something that causes us anxiety. It's a burden. Oh, I have to pray. Let me get it over with quickly. Let me finish it while it's still in the time. As opposed to saying, let me take a time out and just pray. So the question is, what is different about Ramadan? What is different about this time that people will sacrifice 2 hours, even 3 hours when the Qadi was here, to pray Taraweeh at night, but we can't sacrifice 5 minutes any other day of the year to get our Dhuhr prayer in, or to pray Maghrib or Isha? What's different? For every one of us, it's going to be different. We need to identify that. We need to pinpoint what makes us enjoy the prayer in Ramadan, and how can I replicate that the rest of the year? Because we complain about a lot of things, brothers and sisters. We complain about the political situation, the economic situation. We complain about being, monetarily bankrupt in Muslim countries. But we stand here spiritually bankrupt because we're not communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not communicating with Him. Our prayers are absent. And then we wonder why our dua aren't answered, because we only come to Allah when we need Him. We don't go to Allah 5 times a day to check in and say At-tahiyatu lillahi wa salawatu wa tayyibat. To greet Allah and say, Ya Allah, I'm so thankful for everything you've given me. Rather, we only turn to Him when there's a crisis. And if you've ever been in that situation where people only come to you when they need something, then you know how that makes you feel. When someone calls you and they only call you when they're going to ask for something, you know how that makes you feel. But when someone calls you to check up on you and say salam and Ramadan Mubarak and Eid Mubarak and congratulations on your child's graduation, you know how close you are with that person. That's the closeness we want to feel to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what we achieve through the prayer. It's not a burden. It's not handcuffs. It's not shackles. It's therapy. The Prophet ﷺ received it after all this trial and tribulation. Take all of your disappointment, all of your trial, and put it into the prayer. Pray like you mean it. Pray like every word you're saying, you mean. And I promise you and I, we will feel this benefit of prayer. A lot of people have been asking me how they can increase their khushu' in prayer. That they want to pray, but the fact that they don't have quality or focus or concentration in their prayer, how can they increase it? There's two ways I'm going to tell you right now. For Taraweeh prayer, invest some time in reading what the Imam is going to read before the prayer, in whatever language you understand. In whatever language you understand, read the translation, read the tafsir, read a little bit. Take 30 minutes and read a little bit. That way when the Imam is reciting and he says Jahannam or Jannah or Allah, or when he says Alladhina amanu, you can think to yourself, memorize those buzzwords and think to yourself, what is he talking about now? And reflect upon those concepts. Invest some time into it. We invest so much time into everything else. If our kids walked in the house and said, I failed an exam, we would smack them upside the head. But if our kids walked in the house and said, I missed Fajr, we would say, it's okay tomorrow, inshallah, you'll make it. Right? We need to invest some time in prayer. Invest some time in making quality of prayer. The second thing is start your journey learning the Arabic of the prayer. You don't have to speak Arabic to anybody. You don't have to impress anybody at your Arabic da'wats or Arabic iftars. You just have to learn how to communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this language. There's only 6,000 verses. Only 6,000. Right? If you chip away at the vocabulary, you'll be able to understand the majority of them, inshallah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst the people who pray. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us enjoy the prayer and to allow the prayer to fill our hearts and become something that we love. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to love the masjid and to love praying in the masjid. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين اللهم اجعلنا منهم آمين. The action item or the homework from this khutbah, something to take away from this khutbah,